Gumbo to Jedemba, some Jimba and Bobo, so now you just get the Vinculo Santalo, Tapando Chatter with you. Giving his only Roger, Judo, Jojo Bon, she just chulo, Chansalo, Tondi, Lamton. Labada Lerab Dorje, Shenga Damayon, Gimbu Loyal, so. Dorje Naro, the Mamma Mela, Jagamo, Water, Kajulomana. So, the woman to the Hajago, to the major loss of the Sasson agenda, couldn't see. So, me bon shower, Gilas or some jeans on the dancing. Tamba Chujin, so. Bolangani Jimmy Randa Alala, that's not how you're telling. Jimmy Randa Alala. Similar was that Jimmy Randa Alala. Gang in the Zava take the Chipo, don't go so now. This is some glory to kill. Hungry. Oh, not thought you won't come get it on gum job, Yana. Now cut to Bata Boy, Tata, now cut to Bayona. Charon Baron dog dark, young to Bata to say, Chick or your money, now cut in your money, Java, your Mary. Tina Gutini, not to Numong Dedo Kang. Gom the job, same ground, she's in Java on Mera. Some much a day, Gongon and Cho in there. The Nina, the need Tetom drama, the Congo Corsa, Korean, and Tetom did all the bow you marry. The Tetom did do better than him, do some Tetom did. Numo Tamsin and the Democrata, the Donna Tetom made a carriage. Alala Chibani pay somebody. Alala, need you to home the one. Alala, hold and pay somebody.
So we reached in the root text, so the point where it says, leaving no trace and innately pure, what joy, alala, in Tibetan. So in that, actually the entire teaching is contained within this, this line. And what is that all the at the moment, all the thoughts and negative emotions obscure our mind, but it is a little bit like in the sky, when you have you have clouds and it's raining and storm and whatever, and then at some point, then there's no more clouds and the sky is pure, open. But whether there are clouds or not, there is no difference for the sun. It doesn't affect the sun in any way, even though it appears to us in a different way, whether there are clouds or not. Yet at the level of the sun itself, then there's no difference. So and so it's the same with the nature of our mind. That is that all those thoughts and concepts and namtok can obscure the mind, but it doesn't change the very nature of mind. He can just obscure it, but do not change it, just as the cloud do not affect the sun. And so if we are able to, so we need to really realize that, to be aware of that, and come to that kind of decisions, and have that kind of confidence into this nature. And as we practice, and this is important, because we don't need doubts. There's no point of doubting. Doubting actually is an expression of ignorance, and so that's why when we realize this, when all thoughts like that are liberated, leaving no trace, and we rest in this innately pure state of the nature of mind, then there's a great joy. And so in Tibetan it says alala, alalao. So that is very much, it's alala means it's really a very good or very positive, beautiful state we are in.
Junwar Gombase Namto Gomdo Shani Namto Gomdo Shar Nejupala Jatondi Chin the Yang Sharwe Yongur Chini the Shar Di Marie the Nungure Yongur Chini the Shar de Naroche the Igen de Ta Loreke. 노래 같은 경우에 인열 주의도 살아야 인열 주의도 살아는 가대 카 영성을 진실에 매번 로고 말해. 깨자시 가르치나 몸저도 뭐 자동아 이거가 눈에 따만을 제밤에 작은 말해. 딱대 초단 말해야 돼. 몸 뚫리지는 용거래. 인열 주의도 살네. 내주 발라 이제 내주 발라 그래 예를 들면 샘 네바팅이 랑그 진실을 봐대 라송아 네바 다다가 네바리 머네바가로 라송아 드니 디진이 양 남도 이제 양 지로요래 정말 매화차 드리티는 다 네바 저와를 봐 섬들로요래 영역 지지도 셔서는 욕적이 네저 네바 저와인가 각하죠 말했어 네바 저와인가 저번 딱과 내되나 되니 이거 열면은 되니 좋아 가까이요 말 좋아 삼천 넘도 죽을 줄로 와 좋아 안 돌로 내주 이거 받아 요 말이지 내주 발라 이제 이거 감매 받는 내주 발라 이제 즉 동대리 인율 준이도 샤르드나 남도 고도 샤르스는 네반 좋아 이요 말이지.
When you have become used to integrating thoughts into your path like this over a long period of time, thoughts arise as meditation, and all objects of distraction arise as dharmata. The boundary between stillness and movement falls away, and as a result, nothing that arises ever harms or disturbs your dwelling in awareness. So, when we practice in this way, by integrating thoughts into the path, by liberating thoughts in the way that we've described this morning, then all thoughts arise as meditation, it says. And so the comment says that all objects of distraction arise as dharmata. That means that all the what are normally objects of distractions, like when we talk to people, when we do different things, usually that distracts us. But there, when we're able to liberate all thoughts in this way, we never lose the awareness and the mindfulness. And so, never separated from the awareness and the mindfulness, all objects that we engage with, all objects of distraction arise as dharmata. And so there's no distraction. They all arise as dharmata. And the boundary between stillness and movement falls away. So that is, when we practice and we're not so stable in our practice, so there are times when we remain, there's this aspect of remaining, and then there's the aspect of movement when all kind of thoughts arise, and then there's the aspect of the rigpa, of the awareness. So those three aspects of negyu riksum, of the stillness, the movement, and awareness. But when we rest in the nature of mind, then there is no more distinction between the resting, the stillness, and the movement. That is, as we rest in the nature of mind, then all the thoughts and namtok arise, and they are liberated within that space. So the boundary between those two aspects of stillness and movement disappear.
Shawe nepa la manu, nepe shawa maga. So, that's it. Not to catch a shalna, the river water, nepa me, napa me, no? Tini nepa shawa gago mares. Tela, chaluk martang dravalas, chatuk martang dravales. Te se charget nam to gadok ta redo se chakchar tamal pe jo yin dang rayang. Tamal para gadok ante se chanen de ji le so je. Ti pan chin de la jem takpa mer chek ma chek pe ta. 남도 뉴모 잘록대 저 타말방 무슨 냠리마 제바데 기빠리 사용 거를 유모 잘록 기빠리 돼 이는 샤와들더니 남들 방송 상체 냠리 제니 답지 좋더고요 유모 강신은 유모 이 실은 줄도요 타말 빠답지 어때 유모 강제는 들이대는 좀봐 당보 진 드니 신 드니 양정양도 섬네 배는 미지기 줄어 깨자 속바도 지기 정을 지기 깨자 정 만배 지기죠 이제 깨자 려나 대고는 미지를 공로는 로직니스를 당 미지야 보미 그걸 지금 랍상서 자선 틀리더니 이제 봐요 저거 선진 시당 그다 본 청디요래 대 타말바를 내서지 들리 용학을 내서 족바자 저 깨자 족바시는 파깨자 족바시 들리 용거를 제 내서 그러지 냠니 괜히 답지게 딱 그런 거 입지 제래요 될 코로나 때 검잡은 컨트롤에 그런 갈라를 납대 저도메 소소 정보이나 소소 정보이 그 가래라는 거 독도로야 요 말이지 소소 니마이나 그 니마이 말라로 소소 니마이는 마음 걸 소소 이 정도로 저리 상 소소 랑이 지고를 거들 남말 지도 강요 말이지 지도 지금 말아 이 무슨 바지 잘록 하다고 하나 돌록 개발 재미 타고 미책 맞지들 자 재미 타고 되나 자기다가 맞적 미 토마토 항상 책도 그래 자 재미지 자지 미 토마토 항상 책도 그래 남들 바탕에 대도 남도 다니면 항상 돈도 그래지 타만 봐 매요 뭐래더니다 이 타고 내가 맞잖아 타빠서 남용 거로 진송아 단데 하장 가서 오지 그래 돌마돌니 산삼데 고조하고서나 들이 곰보고 고소랑 그래 나 졸라 데이즈 마던 데이즈 들이 돌마돌하는 게 준주라
At that juncture, the way that thoughts, the energy of Rigpa rise as joy and sorrow, hope and fear may be similar to the way they rise in an ordinary person, as in the example of a hemp rope burnt in a fire. Yet with ordinary people, their experience is a very solid one of suppressing or indulging, with the result that they accumulate karmic formations and fall prey to attachment and aggression. On the other hand, for Dzogchen Yogin, thoughts are liberated the moment they arise. So, for ordinary people and for practitioners, the rising arise in the same way. Thoughts, namtok, arise, destructive emotion arise in the same way. But the difference is that the practitioner is able to liberate them all. All those rising, the practitioner can liberate, whereas ordinary people do not liberate them. For the practitioner, they can return, transform all those destructive emotion into primordial wisdom. And whereas ordinary people grasp at the thing and then have a strong attachment and so on, and continue endlessly to do these kind of things. So, for example, when if someone says something bad to you, and then you feel resentful, feel angry at the person, and even after a year or two, then you still remember what they told you, and still have some kind of want to kind of retaliate and say some things which are not so nice to that person. That shows that the anger has still been has been present all the time. There's still been this anger there that hasn't been liberated. So whereas when we meditate, then whatever happened, then we don't mind when we practice. As a practitioner, if someone tells you something nice, or whether they tell you something bad, it doesn't affect you in any way, because also, well, if I'm a good person, then no matter what people say, it won't change that. That won't change it in any way, whatever even if a number of people say it. And likewise, also, if you're a bad person, then that won't change. You'll experience the consequences of your action, that for sure. But whatever people say won't change anything to the situation there. So we need to. We shouldn't, follow after what people say. Whatever people say, well, just don't engage. Don't engage with this. With whatever praise or criticism or whatever it is. And so for a practitioner, then whatever comes up, then immediately we're able to liberate. And so the example is given of the hemp rope, which is burnt in the fire, so that this hemp burns immediately. As soon as you set it in fire, then it burns immediately. And so the thoughts are like that. For the practitioner, it's like this hemp rope that burns in the fire immediately. Whereas for ordinary people, it's like an actual hemp rope that can really tie and bind you. So that's the difference, and this is a very important one. This is something that we need to, it's a profound point we need to be clear about, and that is the difference between liberating the thoughts and not liberating the thoughts. And that has to do with our own kind of diligence, how diligent we are in applying those teachings that we receive, that enable us to do this, to really to liberate those thoughts.
Tamar Pala Garab Antes Shanin, Divji Les also, Ninga Basic Nyamyong you, they should not number Shuna Pimba Yore. Bernanga Tungkana Yobakabla, also Nyasa Chignango, Europa, Ambo, Pumboji Yores, Lamatsel Chu, Maguna and Honga. I'm the Pumbo, the Mena Kona, you don't talk of it. You don't Deva Muni, you don't. They will talk over it. Hope power, then I'll pay you a minute of one such a. Then Hope she did you more to hang on the ticket of passage in Drama Lamna, Hope consent or it. Kunga take lapsum, Dinga take lapsum, that the Manzi, Nimbo Mare, so Zambo, Ying Lam nearby your Mare, so human legend death on the door, young English. Goma till Taco. Then he called me my boat, and Drama here, certainly. Goma the cocaine did it in a jail, not all chat of the Dobson. Just this in cocaine did it jet, Solby. Didn't Lamsang enter gate on a gate on a tree, Minghana key, no croissant. The many subject for this such a party, Tikam to all that temperature garden rate, legendary machine that means the tower rate. 대사 적발이. 무슨 참이 희게 요래 간 징게 요 말이 중말로 로신데 내가 요래. 근데 마신 지나 레소도 따뜻이랑 소지. 그리고 내서들이 종래 내 남용래 등한 것을 해. 하고서
And I have one story to illustrate that. From my own experience, something that I've lived through, and I think that maybe it could be useful for you, my Dharma friend, if I share that. So when I was in jail, I spent some time in jail under the Chinese, and there I had a friend. He was from Amdo. He was one of a kind of a high person there, like a noble in this region. He was called Yukyung Troko, and he was a very good friend of mine. He was a very kind of courageous, kind of a proud person. And I loved him very much, and we were, sleeping. He was the bed next to mine, in jail there. And he was also very sensitive to whatever people would say to him. And so all the time we would just get angry and upset, and get in all sort of trouble because of that. And I told him, again and again, just don't grasp at it. Just don't hold on to this. They are baseless. They don't have any essence, any reality. Their own. They're just words. It's just people would say that, but they are just words. Don't get mad just because of that. Just realize that all that happened, everything is due to the karma, cause and effect, and it's just a result of that. So it is important that you realize that. And I've been repeating that to him a number of times. And one time he couldn't take it anymore, and he took his own life. He cut his throat, and I remember even his blood spilled on my face. And at that time, I realized, well, that's it's very much the blessing of the Dhamma, that because I've been put in the exactly same circumstances he's been put in, but I didn't do that. I didn't go through the same suffering that he went through, and that is thanks to the Dhamma. So I very much, realized that at that time, and so that is, from my own experience, showing how, we react to things, and how also when we hear things, or how we react, has a deep impact.
대 담지는 당수 낭비 추대 동행이 이보래 되나 동행이 이보 능이 이보니 강례데 내만이 내막 담보도 오 가서 동행 가서 용나 소시 조소지 바래데 지양마마 무슨 담비지 오라 마마 접제 다때 룰라투디 다다가 대와 용나 레 기와리송 대와리 동해 오늘 내 먹이어란 게 제바디 동해래 텔라티네 다다 먹이와 가리리 유용 바리 유용만 니지거래 근데 빵 탑래 동해네 야 기와나 레 대와데요 오 내가 사족점 인핑을 로기 전에 좀봐 추점 줘봐 대다은 대버리 대다 공고래 준비 시바 삼제 랑가 동해 따니 제타봐 데비 저럽타봐 로도 야, 저리 가시 동해지 용나? 야, 동남고 대방나 다 남도래. 대화양 시바메 동해 시바메도 다 녹받침에 따와 또 손에 찌빠래 대화 동해지마. 가지고 셈고 코밤을 남다운 통전에 대답이더니 당화 체벌지. 남부주지 용딘 대답이래. 대 다당고 남배공을 중에 참여하고 요래. 대 옛날 아토가 하고는 오 코도 스와리 맞서 남바이 됐었냐 요 말이 상마라 셈 대식이 보오니 사제가 점매가 직접 용 말이 때문에 사제가 지용이 남바지바 사제를 토코요리 오 상마 사제가 이요리 상마 사제에서는 조사 제발 요 말이 이런 거는 내가 온정 로버는 트베데 로버는 트바트마든 가서 공소 로바치 살토고 우리 제가 공 거는마도 컨사 있어 아니 가서 남바이들이 삼제니 말에 상마 남바 인상 거래.
So again, even though I was put in the same situation, so it is very much thanks to the blessing of the Dharma and of the understanding of the law of karma, cause and effect. Thanks to this, that I didn't experience suffering the way he did, and there are many stories that illustrate this, But basically, we are all sentient beings. We're under the influence of the karma. We experience the result of the actions that we've done, and all the experiences of suffering that we have are the result of negative karma that we've done, and all the pleasant, positive experience that we have are the result of the merit of the positive actions, virtuous actions that we've done. And so it is important that we realize that it all depends on the virtuous actions and the negative actions that we've done, and realizing that the destructive emotions lead us to accomplish negative actions that then in turn make us experience suffering. So we need to. Understanding that, then we should very much make every effort to practice the positive actions, such as generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, and so on, because those are very much the cause of of happiness, the cause of a pleasant experience. And whereas the negative actions are the cause of destructive emotions. And so when a painful experience arises, we should realize that this is the result of our own karma. And in the same way, when a positive action arises, when happiness or something positive arises, then particularly if we have like an understanding of the Dzogchen view, then it is important that we bring in this view, realizing that happiness and suffering actually are not really different. They are just namtok, they are just risings, but they are devoid of essence of themselves. And so those are the very special instructions of the Dzogchen. Those are very special instructions, pith instructions. And so we should very much apply that when those kind of experiences arise. And so that is when we understand this. And also we should understand that all sentient beings have this Buddha nature, this Tathagata Garbha, this nature of mind. They all have that. It's not like Buddhists have it and non-Buddhists don't have it. And making this distinction, it's like, well, those people are non-Buddhists, so they don't have, like the same situation that we have, or they are not in the same situation, or making this kind of distinction. Actually, all sentient beings have the Buddha nature, and in that we are all the same. And so all sentient beings are Buddhas. That it is obscure by adventitious obscurations. And so, therefore, we need to very much develop love, a loving attitude towards all sentient beings, to really meditate on that. And, Rinpoche says, well, meditating basically on all sentient beings, that all sentient beings are Buddhist.
남절 발에 샤드니 조와리 집에 당보 남도 모시베 조왕한디 좀 마당 tre바다버즈 레 당부 가운데 당보 남도 모시바디 기치모 남도 집사 참모 모시바다 모시를 들이 갈래 때 탑 남바나 솔로티니 년투다는 상생다는 강자 탑 강어들이 남도다 유모바도 50번 탑 제거를 해지 대신에 제일 공통나 바르던 남도 랑거랑 줘봐 드르드 바시 왔다고 니만 남도 샤르들이 강에서 라미 바고 남도 시바 진시 시랍 그런 것들이 남도 주도 당마고 라인거 돌다 미치보는 생각 이게 책도 요래 배때도 검잡되는 남도 레 말이 강 주도 당마고 라기가 돌다 봐들 랑랑도 드르드 바시 왔다고 배는 드르드 바 잡자죠 코랑랑 식 노로래 배때다래 타마 가카네 남도 비미 누미도 좋아 카동도 꼬마쇼 봤다 중탈까 남도도 뉴뭐 강기나 핀바메 다 다당 게베 핀마다스 데베 노 마자 게베 또빠베는 야 다른 다음에 무기당 좀 나서 봐야 돼 안돼 내가 갑더니 쪼찌지 대발했지 대탑지야 현로요래 몇개도 봐 차당 모서도 봐 강의 대탐제 해로 너는 르빠티부티 상타티 되니 때부 남카다고 남카다데 포절미에서 가지고 셈 남카다고 내기요래 저때와요래 뭐 되니 타만 남도 페미 노미도 가동도 그만쇼 봤다 강과도 보는 그만 성나 가동은 아직 효도성도 또 봐요 말 효도도 강해요 말 그만라 톱줘요 말이지 샘동바 고한게 나 유무반 제고요 말이지 가동다 그래지 좀 똑같아요 말이요 네 너 봐요 말이죠 나 또는 유무바 꼬꼬마 따오고 같이 있잖아 유무바가 빠대 좀 두고 말해 그때다 저는 졸록서 막 타톡 그랬더니 가동 꼬마 따오지 저는 졸록 약수에 되더니 이마한테 용거를 했어
So, in the Dzogchen, so for Dzogchen yogis, thoughts are liberated the moment they arise. And so there's different ways in which they are liberated, which are given here. So at the beginning, arising thoughts are liberated upon being recognized, like meeting an old friend. In the middle, thoughts are liberated by themselves, like a snake uncoiling its own knots. At the end, arising thoughts are liberated without causing either benefit or harm, like a thief breaking into an empty house. So, at the beginning, so arising thoughts are liberated upon being recognized, like meeting an old friend. So, we need, at the beginning, when we start practicing, it is important to recognize the thoughts and do whatever we can in order to recognize those thoughts for what they are and not be carried away by them. So bringing in the instructions that we receive, for example, Mahamudra instructions or the Dzogchen instructions that we received, and liberate those thoughts, recognizing them for what they are. So it says the example is like meeting an old friend. So it's like when you've been, introduced the nature of mind. So when you see the thought arising, so you recognize them for what they are and then liberate them. In the middle, thoughts are liberated by themselves, like a snake uncoiling its own knots. So in the middle, as we develop, then thoughts will be able to liberate by themselves, so that there is nothing to do. As a thought arises, then and it just liberate in itself. There's nothing to, no comment to do. We just, as we rest in the meditation, the arising thought then is liberate itself naturally. So it's like a snake uncoiling its own knots. That is, a snake. If you take a snake and make a knot with a snake, then it would undo the knot by itself. So yeah. Don't try this at home or something. At the end, arising thoughts are liberated without causing either benefit or harm, like a thief breaking into an empty house. So at the end, that is when we have this stability in the recognition of the nature of mind, whatever thought arise, they're all liberated without, it says, causing any either benefit or harm. That means all the thoughts, whether positive thoughts, as we mentioned this morning, such as devotion for the master and so on, or the negative thoughts, whatever thought arise, they do not do anything. They're just liberated. They do not move the nature of mind. It is, we just abide by the space-like nature of mind, and the space-like nature of mind is untouched, unmoved by whatever thought arise, whether it be positive thought or negative thought. It just arise without moving, without shaking in any way this the stability of our recognition of the nature of mind. And so it is like a thief breaking into an empty house. If a thief come into an empty house, then he has nothing to take. Nothing can be stolen, and the thief won't leave with anything. And so it's the same also. Then when you are at that stage, at that level, then whatever thought arise, they do not do anything, just like a thief in an empty house. So the Dzogchen yogi possesses the vital point of the methods of liberation, such as these. And so, therefore, the root text says, but the difference lies in the way they are liberated. That's the key. And so this is, the root text actually is quite short and very pithy. You know, everything is in there. And so Rinpoche says he feels that it would be very good if we could, you know, memorize those this text, you know, the root text, since it's quite short, but then it has everything in it, you know. So this is why it is said to know how to meditate but not how to liberate are those that differ from the meditation of the gods. What this means is that those who put their trust in a meditation which lacks this vital point of the method of liberation and is merely some state of mental quiescence will only stray into the meditation states of the higher realms, people who claim that it is sufficient simply to recognize stillness and movement are no different from ordinary people with their deluded thinking. So that is, when we meditate, when we practice, people, can have some good experience of being able to recognize thoughts when they arise, and have, being able to recognize the stillness when it is there, or the movements of thoughts when this happens. Have that kind of clarity and think that they have a good practice. But actually, the real test is not whether you're able to see during your meditation whether it is stillness or movement, but when destructive emotion arises, then what happens then? If you're able to liberate the destructive emotion, the emotions as it arises, then that shows the stability or the power of your practice. But if you have this kind of clarity in your practice, you reach that level where you're able to see clearly the thought when they arise in your practice, and distinguish between the stillness and the movement and so on, see all that clearly. But if you're not able to liberate the destructive emotions, the emotions as they arise, then, or the thoughts as they arise, then it says you are not different from ordinary people with their deluded thinking. Because what happens is that for ordinary people, and in that case also, when destructive emotion rises, if we're not able to liberate it, then immediately we accumulate karma and circle and samsara and so on. So in that, it is not different from ordinary people. And the text continues and says, and as for those who give it all kinds of labels like emptiness and dharmakaya, the basic flaw in their remedy is exposed when it fails to hold up under the first misfortune or difficulty they meet. And so without this method of liberation, meditation is but the path of delusion. So it says when so people who give it all kinds of labels like emptiness, dharmakaya, and so on. So that is it's the mind that it's when those are just kind of made or produced by the mind. You know those labels, and it's just a kind of if you want a intellectual understanding of those things. That is based on the scriptures and on reasoning. Then we can come to again a certain understanding, intellectual understanding of how emptiness is, what dharmakaya is like. But it's not realizing it. There's no realization there, and it's not. What we need to do is to really realize that and to come to a definitive kind of certainty of what it is, and then to rest in that, to have that kind of deep inner confidence of how emptiness is like, and not just rely on the mere intellectual understanding. So, because just so talking about emptiness and being able to say, well, emptiness is like this or like that, or the dharmakaya is like this or like that, is just at the level of intellectual understanding. Is just an intellectual understanding, but then when in emptiness, if you really rest in a state of emptiness, then there is no kind of thought of I'm staying in emptiness, I'm not staying in emptiness. It is beyond all those. You have really, when you have a deep inner experience of of emptiness. So it is different from just mere understanding, a mere intellectual understanding. And so, of course, there is things to understand about emptiness, explanations that are given and things that we can understand. And likewise about the dharmakaya, when we say that the dharmakaya is, for example, is like space, or it is all pervasive, and so on. So there are, of course, things to understand. But we need to go beyond that. We need to go beyond just the mere understanding. The mere understanding, so it says, when it says here, those who give all kinds of label like emptiness or dharmakaya, means all those kind of just mere intellectual understanding is not enough. There's three things. There is the intellectual understanding, there is the experience, and there is the realization. And so it is like an example of food. When you first buy food, then you prepare it, but then if you don't eat it, then it's pointless. It's wasted. So it's the same also. First, we need to develop that an intellectual understanding by investigating and dispelling doubts, and then we come to experience that. Once we have that understanding, then we can come to have some experience, some taste of what, for example, emptiness is like. And then as we familiarize ourselves further, then we come to have this deep inner conviction, this realization. And so it is here, so it says that we shouldn't rely on just mere intellectual understanding. When it says, so for those who give it all kinds of labels like emptiness and dharmakaya, the basic flow is their remedy is exposed when it fails to hold up under the first misfortune or difficulty they meet. That is, this mere intellectual understanding won't help when there's a like a destructive emotion or big problem arise. Then we lose it, we forget it. And so we cannot rely just on the mere intellectual understanding.
니 산제 추적 공문에 대해더니 어르광 투나 니 대디 다딱제 동로 하고요래 때문에 산제 추적 그다 대박의 이시진오 산제 열에대 산제 그래서 죽어래 돼 죽어가려 남과다고 되서는들이 진짜 매가는 착해 요래 당연히 생구대로 통소나 다 생구대로라고 그래서 빠데 띠보찬 다 이렇게 돌아 내디고 감이 다 가자 저게 약코래 저런 거 빠데 가리독지나 드리독들 라야 메독 nakana jiret ta mido jena konde ji sawadi 제바보 가wan도 다 제바보 제바보 진도 싸워를 쉬 학고도 돼 싸워도 학고도 때려 협도 된 싹동성도 족바 되더니 뭐 동반 남하다고 돼 축거게 돼 라기 사회시 될 롱거고 이런데 그 싹동성도 족바 르바데 그 남케가 잡을 찹대고 다 산제 꽃음 주섬지 산제 탐제 다 내는 니도 니는 자와 탐제 실로도 찍들 단들에 샤데 들 산제 무서 때도 통네 랑거심지 랑신 산제 체험도 주섬지 산제 탐제 랑거심 상도 들이 예치 때도 제요래 근데 르방고만 줘봐도 산제를 예치 운에도 제토고요 말이에요.
So when we say that the nature of mind is the Dhammakaya, we need so to have an experience of this, and so that is if we are so even though that is the case, we might not recognize it. But then if we are introduced to the nature of mind, then clarify that somewhat, then we'll gain this certainty once we're introduced to the nature of mind, and then investigate, check a little bit, then we'll come to that understanding, to that deep inner conviction that that the nature of mind is the Dhammakaya. But then without that, if we're not introduced to the nature of mind, without that deep inner experience, then we can be told that the Buddha is the Dhammakaya. All the Buddhas are actually one within the expanse of the Dhammakaya, that is the nature of our mind. But without this experience, deep inner experience, then there won't be this stability. And so that we need to have that. If we have that experience of the Rigpa, then we'll be able to see that and to have that kind of a stability. Because when we stay in the in meditation, in the practice, and if we practice in the Rigpa, then people may ask, well, how is your practice? Well, there's nothing you can say. You can't really describe the experience that you're having, and it says. Or you say, well, it's like space, but then say, but so nothing exists, there's nothing there. And then where you say, no, it's not, there's nothing there, because where would be the this universal monarch, creator of all of samsara and nirvana? So that he's the creator, it is also the creator of all of samsara and nirvana. They all arise from that. So there is that clarity there, that clear understanding of what's happening within that experience, that practice experience. and we realize we can come to have an idea of what it means when we say that so the nature of mind has those three qualities of empty essence, cognizant nature, and unimpeded compassion. And the empty essence, it says, is the Dhammakaya. The cognizant nature is the Sambhogakaya of the Buddhas, and the unimpeded compassion is the Nirmanakaya. And so through this direct experience, then we can come to see how actually all three kayas are included within this. How, when we talk about how all the Buddhas are in their wisdom mind one, the unity, this great unity of all the Buddhas, then we come to have a taste of that. Then we can come to have a confidence that this is the case. And otherwise, if we don't have that kind of experience, it is extremely difficult to get that kind of confidence in this.
대답하더니 너다 탐저 공용 또좀 만좀나 드니 르제지 제데 바테다 진이장 최체 이부랑 창동지 다 저도 공역 보여 다들은 동해 치보도 강의 치보는 요감들 공도 매가는 기자들 강의 채용 거래 이부랑 창동지 랑속부터 병 demi gompa triple lam de zawanane dai tosona didi ma gom chugo lam de nampo nyumo ba torm to demi gompa triple lam de da ju gom ka che jam nampo ta nyumo ba madona gom de triple chepa yo mare so demi gompa triple lam de
So again, for those who give it all kinds of labels like emptiness and Dhammakaya, that these will give to the nature of mind, their meditative experience, all kind of labels like emptiness and Dhammakaya, these just have a limited intellectual understanding. The basic flaw is in their remedy is exposed when it fails to hold up under the first misfortune or difficulty they meet. And so that is when that is the case, when the people just rely on a mere intellectual understanding of emptiness and Dhammakaya and so on, then whenever a difficulty, problem arises, then they cannot cope with it, they cannot liberate it. And so therefore, without this method of liberation, meditation is but the path of delusion. That is, that however much we practice, then there's no difference, because there's not this ability to liberate, because the thoughts are not liberated, and so therefore the meditation is just doesn't liberate from the delusion, but it's just the same, accumulating more deluded thoughts.
난디 삼친은 디 조철 숨 요리 된거 보는 예돌 타돌 랑돌 숨 어때 멘지 가려야지 다 도모 이제 조철 얘는 본절 비비 예돌지 랑그 봐 될지는 뭐 토모 니더니 마드바라주리 오빠한테 얘네 좋아 저같이 못 가다 까레다 봐대 예돌 동라 코와 토만 미번이 유모 받은 조장 전 토만 가도 싸우는 마드바 살람이 통한테 예돌 그러봐 얘네 좋대 요래서 강자가 나처럼 탑인 진당 영천도 봐 다돌 다들 좀 다음부터 그 맹나 라면도 다 안했더니 예번 다음에번 다 딱지면 줄라서 봐. 좀 단남이 영만 보다 거요래. 대탐치 철드는 로는 바래스. 근데 저 토는 좀 봤다는 메나? 는 다돌래지. 저걸 좀 봤다는 요 말. 다 돌었어. 되겠나? 예, 돌 다 돌려 주나? Patrul. Something in Qi, is about Qi, something you mean the something in Congress Sabri, Congress Tribari, Congress something Qi, they go Marie.
So we talk about liberation on rising or self-liberation. So in the notation by Khenpo Munsel, so he mentions about the three types of liberation. So there is primordial liberation or yedrol. There is liberation from extremes, tadrol, and there is the liberation or the self-liberation. So it says that the ground's way of abiding is and has always been beyond transition and change. So it is primordial liberation. So primordial liberation refers to the primordial purity of Dzogchen. We talk about the primordial purity, how the ground has always been primordially pure, beyond any transition or change. So that is primordial liberation. An individual's perception in which modes of clinging to the four extremes fade into all-pervading space is liberated from extremes. So that is the second tadrol, when the perception of ordinary people which cling to the four extremes. So basically, there's all those thoughts that are produced by the mind, all this grasping that is produced by the mind are not present within the Rigpa. In the state of Rigpa, there's no grasping whatsoever. So there's no grasping at any kind of extreme, and so conceptual extreme, and so therefore there is the second liberation, also the liberation from extremes.
Rikpa nyūsi sēsē kāng xiār tōg cē tam cē bākchā sōlōng mē pār chōwē rāngzhōr sōng. Rikpa nyūsi sēsē tātā rikpa ngō nēn jē tē rikpa nyūsi sēsē tē rāngzhōr nāma mā pāpā nā tō tō chōwā sā nāma kā cē nāng ngā yō tē tam cē nzibā mā yō kā tē nā tō tō chōwā Java ma papa jo tho to tro. O na ma sam ji salami so so to bo sia ko ha ko yo tin java ma re. Java ma papa jo tho to tro ba. Na mo tho to tro. Jo tho to tro. Java ma papa jo tho to tro le je ro so. Den le rang ro nyam ya dang. Deng ji ja ma ra na. Je ro Jitopla yana chose. Tengi jamara no siwati. Gong ni kantong kuma pechi pare. Kantong kuma de. Oh, kate shana de ripati ripma soma. Simsa o ripa rangsok toba. Dolna di sama shirik rangsok ma showa. Dinen do yore. Tengi jamarawa songduwa, de shirik rangsok ma showa. Tengi jamarawa dinen duwa. Ripa rangsok ma showa deri. Kapana. Jamarawa. Tengi jamarawa dina, jadina. Tengi jimba jishiyuna. Jinxiyu ba nam to xiao nam to len ba xiao su na ta deng di ku ti lo ba gap cha ge chue sa lo lo ya ra de gap cha song ta gap cha dong jia po lo le o nam to ka ce nam to ni mo ka ce ji ne ya ri ba rang chou ma xiao ba ri ba rang chou ba xiao ju ka le ne de gong de ni mo ba de lo yo ma ni mo ba sha ba de 식도 그래. 너는 유무마 식. 유무마 마저리 자란으로 딱 그만 태너라.
당부도 해야 돼. 당부도 낭토도 좋다. 제조다. 랑조다. 제조다. 맞아. 근데 얼마치디 숨열에서 다 근데라도 시도 랑조다. 제조. 시도. 제조다. 랑조. 랑조. 제조의 시.
something Randor, Theatre, Randor, and Yard, and some.
So when Rigpa is awakened in the center of our hearts, all rising thought states are liberated without having the opportunity to gather habitual tendencies. So when we rest in the state of Rigpa, then there's this clarity. We just stay in that state of openness and clarity of the nature of mind. Then all thoughts are liberated. All the risings are liberated naturally. So this is the self-liberation, in which appearances are not rejected but are liberated as soon as they appear. So the naked liberation means that movement without being rejected is liberated upon movement. And therefore, we can say that self-liberation happens in meditative equipoise, and as long as we do not break the seal of samadhi, naked liberation happens during post-meditation. So the naked liberation is that when the movement, that is the movement of thoughts that arise, are not rejected, but then as they arise, they are liberated. This is the naked liberation, and so that is the. It says, as long as we do not break the seal of samadhi, then this naked liberation can take place. So at all times, as long as we stay in that view, in the nature of mind, then whatever thought arises, then it is liberated. And so it says the example of breaking the seal of samadhi, or she says like the example of a cup. If you have water in the cup, then if you break the cup, then the water spills everywhere. So it is the same also if you maintain the samadhi, the view, then all those thoughts that arise are liberated within the space of the view.
다 공개 맹대 맹례를 저도 고아를 차 가보요나 고아 지만데 찍보는데 그래서 남도랑 저 지미도 더 버터는데 라도 무슨도 또 내도 찍봐 라지 쪽바 챔비 제추서 공개디 돌로 망보지 송송 તે 가자가 제발다 로이 제발 잠이라 요장 대담도 고면텀나 남도랑 저 지미도 저저 대 공시에 철을 못 하버지 배대 집보 송되나 공도 대다담이 마오는 뇌봐요 말이지 맹 쳤다 장송도가 맹먹어도 아세 맹먹어도 나 다 동집보치도 다 초고나 남도랑 저 지미도 좋은데 하고 그러 오 탱먹었다는 거리 남도랑 저 지미 정말 영원하지 너는 생각도 남도 좀 이렇게 잘했어 변에 쇼고 같은 것이 미좀 맞죠 쇼들로 떴나 미파 요연의 쇼를 좀 가그래 되는 게 많이 봐 남도도 봐 조성 생각 좀 받대 내가 빼줘 버려 며칠 코로나 코로나에 밤에 손을 몇대 통 마가와서 차안 그래 다 맞았다 뭐 몇대 통은 한마디랑 통하는 바 짜면 졸마도 들이 따고라. 가상가 코로 랑통 들은 간도 싸와는지 마음도 땅아 곰배 약간도 저런 거를 지지 좋아. 야, 몇이 되는 내용을 하고 다시 되는 코니까 코시다 가면 나 곰이 보면 독성 내가 계랑 소소 은이 곰 맞아 나고 곰라 나고 곰이 보면 독성 소주하고라. 이게 단남 돈으로 지미도 근데 특히 보송들이 그래.
So, liberation on the rising, self-liberation, naked liberation. So whatever name you give it, this manner of liberation, where thoughts liberate themselves and are purified without a trace, is the same crucial point, which is explicitly to show this self-liberation. And this is a very special teaching of the Dzogchen. Very special instruction of Dzogchen. So there are different names that we talk about, different types of liberation on the rising, self-liberation, naked liberation, so on, many different types of liberation we mention. And that could be a little bit overwhelming. And if we try to, associate with each of them, kind of the different understanding according to the explanations that were given. But those are given also, we need to keep in mind, according to the different capacities of being or different propensities. We all have different kind of abilities of propensities, and so different teachings are given in different contexts. But we need to keep in mind that all of them, they all come down to that it says this manner of liberation where thoughts liberate themselves and are purified without a trace is the same crucial point. So they all come down to that, to this self-liberation of the rising thoughts. And so if we have that, then that is the practice. It is fine. And this is so this is how we should be practicing. That is, whatever thought arise, then to really try to liberate all thoughts and liberating again and again and again, so that no more thought come and stain our mind. It is a little bit like the example of if you put some medicine, particularly like a herbal medicine, like Tibetan medicine, some paper, it stays there for some time. Then after that, even when there's no more medicine in the paper, if you smell the paper, you can still smell the medicine. There's still the smell of the medicine. Well, it shouldn't be like this. When you liberate, there shouldn't be any more trace of those thoughts, and to really train in that and develop that ability. And the way to gauge our progress in meditation, where we are in meditation, is, as I said earlier, let's say, for example, that you had an argument with someone, or something didn't go so well with someone else, and you felt angry at that person. Then when you see that person again, then see how you are. If you feel that there's still some anger, resentment, towards the person, then you can see, oh, my practice, is not so good. I need to practice more, But then if you see that person, just remember, oh, I was angry at that person, but now there's nothing left. That's good. That's a very good sign. That means that you've liberated those.
양산 라미 이제 체추 안데 꿈진 전부 어렵다 따와서 증민은 그 진초 잡고 공부하서 진초 잡고데 따와서 진초 잡고 사토는 오직 바래서 아버서 빠트를 뭐지 졸록 규바데 체추 통은 많이 벌게서 리는 kumchen chenpo tawa, raba tawa, jilingi chenpo japo gomba, agu cholok kyope chechu tamu mayi, dono tawa gomba, kyopa samde, patrul mo chike, cholok kyopa de chechu tamu mayi nangi yore eso. Cholok chebar, tata cholok mamo song rwa, 이 졸록대 졸록 개치보 인성 빠트를 뭐 지송을 sakchin solo trowa yoja trolong me sakchin gong di trolong di deta songre di mangpo songgu mari mo jang jang la long ji gom do di di den dek ma dek chira songgu yo mari de songgu yo mari trolong dong rebe chi ba trowa yoja de trolong yo re sa ja ji bo trolong yo trolong de xip xip yo mari eso.
The great omniscient one, Longchenpa, said it is the view of Rigpa. Jigme Limpa said it is the meditation of the supreme king-like mindfulness. And Patrul is
the Patrul
Rinpoche said it is the conduct of the modes of liberation that is the special, uncommon feature of this approach. And so here we see that the Patrul Rinpoche said, clearly how it is the conduct that is the liberation, which is very much the special, uncommon feature of the Dzogchen approach. And it says that in the Mahamudra there is liberation, but not the modes of liberation or the ways of liberating are not presented explicitly. So that is, in the Mahamudra, not much is said about liberation. Liberation is present within the practice of Mahamudra, but in terms of the teachings, then they don't give much detailed explanation about it. Mahamudra is more about the devotion. You cultivate the devotion, and this is the way that you practice, and you don't give too much explanation or detail. So that is. So in the Mahamudra, even though there is this aspect of liberation in the practice, it is not explained with as much detail as in the Dzogchen.
내 당보 봐야 따뜻다 파철디 왕고 라비는 마도 정말 내 당보 바래 강리들 토마로도 남전인 공중이 되는 양슬린 거리 전에 상통이 되게 년투자 내 당보에 막 방송에 년투 따와는 빼나 오 세상도 지는 네 제비 냐와는 나랑 냐와는 도리지 네 송좀 냐와가 동해들 럽 야와 그 동네들 롬니 야와 그 동네들 저 강리 송 때는 저 세상에 송. 저 세상에 송에 딸 소시 줄 세상 적기는 삐지랑잖아. 오, 당아 실을 내기 지선 랑거래. 내기 지선은 거 샘는 세상은 거 야차 야냐와는 도그래다. 레이치는 항상 소소더니 이제더니 방을 했어요. 그거 인투자 마빵 마과서 다 이뭐 세상가 노차라서 과 마독방 드라마다 곰 드니게 그거를 인투자 마과서
Do not practice rejection like the Shravakas and beginners. Do not abstract, do not purify like the Bodhisattvas. Do not transform like removing water from the ear by pouring more water inside as in the approach of the common mantra vehicles. So it says, do not practice rejection like the Shravakas and beginners. So beginners, basically that refers to everybody apart from those of really highest faculty. But all the others, then we go through the different steps of the path, starting with the four mind changing, the four thoughts that turns the mind towards the Dharma, and starting to think about the impermanence, preciousness of human life, of the karma, cause and effect. Thinking how due to the negative actions that we've done, then we'll be experiencing suffering. How the suffering that we're experiencing now is the result of the karma that we've accumulated in the past. And so really reflecting along those lines, realizing very much coming to a deep understanding that actually if we have anger now, then we'll be accomplishing negative actions, and the result will be that we'll go for sure in the hell realm. So develop that kind of understanding. So this is, as we set out on the path as beginners, then this is the kind of thoughts that we develop, coming to realize that destructive emotions such as anger are not good and should be rejected.
상신들 맵장성 다 상종스 미사니 다 탐지 파마마데 직경 미바텔 상희지 집부 범르들이 상희지를 떼네 이 뉴모토들람지 이거 퍼센트라 죽기요래 데 치벌 강리지라 오 남보더니 남도 전에 맥이에 똑바탐지 기와를 줘 당디디 상희지를 줘 상희지 저런데 상희지더니 뉴모토도 퍼센트로 저르베르베 줘 대상진짜 맵여서 변을 제와지 미지나 제와지 금이라 신남에 예마 제와지 금이라 누셈에 인도 바파 추천 제와지 물은 도차메 추천 제와지 물은 kontrome 즈바테다 제와우선 라기게 마피바가들이 교바탐제 퍼센트 조건은 인도고 요래 대형 이인데 제가 인강에도 곰 주민인지 공부를 또 지금지 곰 상행지 곰 상행지 치보치라 대답을 연구요래 대답을 많이 상세다 몇장스
Do not purify like the bodhisattvas. So the approach on the bodhisattva path is to cultivate the loving mind of enlightenment, to cultivate very much this sense of love towards all sentient beings, realizing how all sentient beings have been at a moment or another our parents and so on, and in this way developing the love within ourselves. And so this path of the bodhisattva is a path of transformation, transforming negativity into positivity, using the positive kind of aspect to transform this. For example, you start by transforming the grasping at the self into compassion. Out of that grasping at the self, then you cultivate compassion for sentient beings. Out of this loving compassion for sentient beings, then you cultivate the paramitas. You cultivate the generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. And so, and this we can understand, if we look at what happens, if we have this kind of loving attitude, then naturally we won't have any stinginess, and therefore accomplish the paramita of generosity. If we have love, then we won't feel like harming others, and so we'll have the discipline. If we have the love also, then we won't get angry, and so therefore master the paramita of patience, and so on. And so therefore the path of the bodhisattva is a path of purification and transformation, but here the approach is not like that. It's not an approach of purifying or transforming in this way.
nga tomong wa tamje navar chocho pa chudo ba der me jurso da sangha ge di chadang ramdu che ki yore bena 자롱 라서 바람을 때네 대형 먹고서 토목 많이 받았다 왜네다 디나 다다 얼빠 찌뿌라 뛰는 이유 뭐 좀지대 너 같이 보고 볼까니 대체 보냈어 맨디 대체발 강래 똑같이 보고 이제 랑가 답을 받다와 또나 뉴뭐 강기나 다리 공시해 봐요 뉴뭐 받아 얼빠니가 봐나 니보인 자원 발마 줘봐 나도 이제 발마 줘봐 시당기는 시당랑당하고 곰대 곰그 내 열매 시당이 삼로 시당 쪽발에서 로 가면 먹지라 곰랑 속탁 내나들이 뒤도 없거든요 좀 더 봐야 돼 얼빠자로나 너같이 못해 이제 거래서 인지는 맞지봐 얘네들이 니모랑 돌아도고요
Do not transform like removing water from the ear by pouring more water inside, as in the approach of the common mantra vehicles. This is an uncommon, extraordinary approach. So the approach of the other mantra vehicles below the Dzogchen, like the approach through the Kerim and the Talung practices, is like removing water from the ear by pouring more water inside. So if you pour more water, then all the water will get out. And so you use technique like the Talung technique and so on in order to gain realization. But the Dzogchen approach is not like that. This is this uncommon, extraordinary approach where you don't need to do any of this. What is it to do? It's just once you've realized, so the view, as you realize the view resting in the nature of mind, then whatever arises, then whether it be anger, if anger arises as you rest in the nature of mind, then you don't try to suppress the anger or to do anything to the anger. When anger arises, well, that's anger. And as you stay in the meditation, as you're stable in your meditation, then the anger will liberate of itself. So there's all the destructive emotions are self-liberated within the space of the nature of our mind. That is the approach of the Dzogchen.
람도세도 돈문 모임이 돼도 내가 니나 뉴몽다 남도 강지 주걸 홍네 출도 이시서다经历조서 잘 뉴몽 람도세에서 독딩 고딩당 뉴몽 람딩의 샤베 다 동네대야 남도래 남도 참아 다나 근데 고부 대바양 때려야지. 뉴몽 람딘데 샤베 코바 마방바 내서 다네서 네 뉴몽 빵 마고와 뉴몽 이실은 저성나? 근데 코바 그 자와 뉴몽이 뉴몽 봐 남도한테 방송 전에 코바를 탈탈인데 말아래 뺀듯은 거요. 코바 방법 바로나 냐데 이네 덥더 메디 세고 남도데 다송 전나들이 샘터가는 상제래 상제 인이 럽고 말이지 나소 참마 샘지 삼지 샘거 남도다 다송 전나들이 샘터가는 상제래서 남도 간지 축거로네 축거로네 저도 있었다 인이 조선차 인이로도 저들은 다 동해다 뉴모바 쇼키모 째는 뉴모바 동해 쇼 같이 쇼키졌기나 대점 것들이 시랍 때 톱치는 거고요래 베르나 야 저도 검정하다 뉴모 또 총총 줘나 탑거는 매요나 무슨 총총 야나 매대 대점 거 무슨 침보야나 매라도 치르고요래 대나기 배나 족바 첨부 따와 또부 강자이나 주 세당 체보질랑 대 고토서는 추도적으로 나와지고 잡리 곰 네발려 타고 그래 오 추도적으로 배놓고 다른 세당 체보질랑 대 고소나 나와지고 곰 근데 봐 락상 들지요 그래 그래서 Okay. Jing draw the charge, Jing bottom to draw it.
Thank you. Thank you. So if you process this key point then of the liberation, then whatever negative emotions or thoughts arise simply turn into Dharmakaya. And all these delusory thoughts are purified as wisdom. All harmful circumstances arise as friends, and all negative emotions becomes the path. Samsara is purified in its own natural state without your having to renounce it, and you are freed from the chains of both conditioned existence and the state of peace. So you have arrived at such a complete and final state. There is no effort, nothing to achieve, nothing left to do. So to say that on the path of Dzogchen, then we don't need to abandon the destructive emotions. Having said that, the destructive emotions are the root of samsara. But then, if we're able to liberate all the namtok, all the rising thoughts, then the destructive emotions, which are also namtok, which are also of the same nature, are also liberated. And so, if we're able to liberate all the thoughts, all the namtok that arise in the mind, then there's nothing else to do. Then we won't be in the samsara anymore. We're freed from the samsara. There is a saying by Milarepa. He said that if you abandon samsara, then beyond that there is no nirvana to attain. Meaning that if you're able to eliminate, to liberate all the rising thoughts and namtok that arise in your mind, then you reach Buddhahood, and there is nothing else to do. There is nowhere else to search for enlightenment or nirvana. So that is, if you're just able to liberate all the rising thoughts, then there is there's nothing else to do. Then that is the liberation. That is how we reach Buddhahood. So then we have, of course, when you practice, I'm sure that when you sit, there are times when some kind of emotions or rising pop up in your practice. And at that time, so as beginners, then it is said that if we are able to liberate the thoughts that arise, then it increases the power of the wisdom, the power of our rigpa. And says that it is like in the example of if you have a fire, if you put a little bit of small firewood, then the fire will get slightly bigger. But then if you put bigger pieces of firewood, then the fire will get much larger. And so it is the same also. If you are able to liberate, say that as beginners, if we are able to liberate like strong negative emotions, if you have a strong rising, destructive emotion rising, if you're able to liberate that, then it is said it's like the 1 month of meditation, like the power that you gain in your rigpa, in your practice. It is like is the same as 1 month of practice if you are able to liberate that one kind of powerful destructive emotion.
Si chongwale chorde sami todrup tantar ngang de la dawe na de magong chuku ngang Seven Chunga, Howard Torson, Seven Chunga, Ranch of Den de Mare. This is not Sijin Chunga Droga race. Sijin Chunga Rorsona. Sarmi Zudup Dang Travel on the Lada Vinad. Kaya Leka Yomari. Saji Salariva go Yomari. Saji Tegarangri. Koa Chego Yomar, Koa Nato, Ishil Yori, Taleka Kariori. Tanita Sarmi Zudup Yungata, Zudup Kang Chego mate. Tanita Nakana Gita, Samba Nakana Gide, Charmade. The trouble somebody Chawadi. The trip some lawyer, drop some lawyer, your money. No, your money. Submit the troop on lap that way not. Oh, didn't touch anything. The demon going to go.
And thanks to this, you arrive at such a complete and final state that there is no effort, nothing to achieve, and nothing left to do. So when you reach there, when you're able to liberate all thoughts in this way, then there is nothing to achieve, nothing left to do. That is, the Buddhahood. Well, that's it. If you're able to liberate all the thoughts, then there's no other kind of Buddhahood to go search, or you don't need to search for the Buddhahood elsewhere. That's it. And there's nothing left to do. There's no destructive emotions to eliminate. Nothing to do. So you just rest in the space-like nature of mind, in the space or the great openness of the nature of your mind. And so the root text says, when you have it, there is non-meditation, the state of Dharmakaya.
Tao look at them, Tawa Tongto Tang, Gomba, Sabzap, Jatawa Jula Yuba, Romjang, Semna Pins, Dona Kong is someone Dona new Patrul Matter Gomti, then Semna Pin Togo your marriage. The hit around the Kong Mambo Shitsa, young Jackie was a married. Some pig marriage. Kayam opinion, new moment in Bor Monroe, young top of Lamba in that. New moment in Bor Mason, take a gomgo pedo. Gomgo, you carry Gomta, Nimong me base. Tuta, she sent about Dani. Chuma will have got a muddy Shiva, Tava, Zubayoa. The real time meeting in Kibares. Gomta Nimong me was. Oh, true. Don't tang you mug similar kangi zomatapa. Ta gomba yonti tere. Tendela, new mobile kangi mazona. Tini Chia Mambole. Kangi the Dungi, go Tarva. Kangi the Dungi Omarava. Tata Siji Chomali, draw song. Nisong Dungi, go Tarsona. Sajil Kangi. 시원청하지 사지에 등에서 다른 보리 가시 사지를 대방아 사지까지 톱나 산들이 왔지 뭐 이거래 사자지 뭐 녹밭집에 따와 또나 오 샘디랑 그 샘내로 상지 용띠 하고 있잖아 어 따다랑 사지래랑 그 곰탑나 곰아탑나 따다랑 샘신이래 샘신이래나 라왕을 사지 제나 라왕을 했더니 사지까지 톱나 사지로 어디 그래 요 말아
기뻐하시다 이 말에서 누가 보신 거예요?
똑같이 보다 사제 팀부터가 또 되는 사제 연구만 소리에 언제가 뒤따와 또보다 사제
맞아.
고아를 신지 추면도 특급 따라 제가 다 들어와 주바이 그래 몸하고 열단 영문과 총 영문을 만들고 그래.
If you do not have the confidence of such a way of liberation, you can claim your view is high and your meditation is deep, but it will not really help your mind, and nor will it prove a remedy for your negative emotions. Therefore, this is not the true path. On the other hand, if you do have the key point of self-arising and self-liberating, then, without even the minutest attitude of a high view or notion of a deep meditation, it is quite impossible for your mind not to be liberated from the bonds of dualistic grasping. When you go to the fabled island of gold, you can never find ordinary earth or stones, however hard you look. In just the same way, stillness, movement, and thoughts all arise now as meditation, and even if you search for real solid illusions, you will not find any. And this alone is the measure to determine whether your practice has hit the mark or not. So here says, so he's explained already a lot, and this is the same points that he's explained already. So there's no point to kind of say that again. But then, so that on the sign that someone has practiced is that there's less destructive emotions. Usually, it is said like this in the teachings, that the sign that someone is a meditator is that he has less destructive emotions. And so if you practice a lot, but then, in terms of your destructive emotions, it doesn't change anything, then it means that there's not much point in the practice that you're doing, doesn't bring the benefit that it should bring. But then if, on the other hand, as you practice, then the destructive emotions then become less and less, then this is a sign that the practice is really working, and you're accomplishing the practice. And so in the also there's also this point that sometimes some people think that the Buddha is quite far. I'm practicing, but then in some time after years and years and years, or lives and lives and lives, maybe I'll reach Buddhahood, and see the Buddhahood as something very far, very remote. But actually, in the Dzogchen and the Mahamudra, then it is not like that. The Buddha is just there. This is the nature of our mind. If we practice, then we're Buddhas, And if we do not practice, well, we're just sentient beings. So this is just that, just that much. That is the Dzogchen, in the Dzogchen, if we understand the Dzogchen view, the Dzogchen approach, there's not much difference. So if we practice, well, we're Buddhas. If we do not, then we're in delusion, so we're just sentient beings. There's not much more difference between Buddha and sentient beings.
Mm.
And therefore, the Buddha, or being a Buddha or being a sentient beings, that is in our hand. That depends on us. We have the choice, and we can choose to be a sentient being or choose to be a Buddha.
Yang pa la mai na ta rang sha rang ro ji ne de tang din na ta wang thong jin jin dang dang gong ba sa zap de de so de charap zam miao mei jiang rang ju yi ji yi chong wa le zhuo ba me ju me si jiang se ling de sin di sa do pa pa zai jiao me yi ba da tan de kan za 카시에더니 라금 먹으다 김종대 되네 무슨 냠슬이 맡았나 유뭐 곰나양 선대 유는 분이 마성 같은 일에 열에서 카시는 가서 다 가정 장바지 직접 봤다가 그랬지 대 많이 가서나 유노보 곰 맞잡니 가시는 유노보 곰 맞으면 곰 양도 자시 송도는 먹을당 nim종당 hinge당 제를 곰 송나 유노보 냠니 맞제나요 아니 딱또 특별히 요지를 했어 변하게 다왕 통진 당당 곰바사 잡게 돼서 당이 로몽보 양들랑들이 가요现在没讲去大话的女某们你不着的大区让就你的情况是着完没就没事件子你的情况是着了你的讲的的了你的忙不了的大话讲的要没讲的女梦到一时卡卡要么的女梦一时切没呢고만 롱도 저 봐야 돼 말아야 밖에 니도 따와도서 거니 뉴몬 보다 시체면 뉴몬 참지 시리 뉴몬한테 시간은 연도 요래 대답됐더니 대답을 전에 내더나 변나 롱바지 세리나 티는 그리 마 사도 가까이 작은 해가 말이야 남도 탐말만 남도 랑주 갔다 와는 내가 요래 남도 랑주 가면 샘된 친구요 말이야 고박 강연을 들으면 정말 그랬던 자조 남조 남랑이 산다스 가지는 좀 먹고도 잠보 되게 빼지 보여 그래서 대답은 사도 발바 짜점이 달 문이 빠달 내저도 남도 강기 곰도 살네 출발한 팀바 짜점이 번져 왜 나스
주다 시킨 들어 주만 붙어 따라 해봐 들어 주가 거기 뭐만 보자 일단 니몬 총 거기 딱 주다 시킨 들어 건가 니몬 총
계속
So therefore, as we said, so the sign of someone who's practiced meditation is that there's less destructive emotion. Just as the sign of someone who's studied is more understanding, and the sign of someone whose mind is a little bit tamed, and a sign of someone who's practiced meditation is that there's less destructive emotions. So again, so here in the text, he was saying that with the if you have the key point of self-arising and self-liberating, then without even the minutest attitude of a high view or a notion of a deep meditation, you don't think that you have like a high view or you have like a deep meditation. But even if you don't think that, then it is quite impossible for your mind not to be liberated from the bonds of dualistic grasping. So that is that some individual who don't have much devotion may practice for a long time, be very disciplined in their practice, but because they like the devotion, then they won't gain the result of the practice. There won't be much result in the practice. There won't be much improvement in their destructive emotions. And whereas some who even though they are not like those instantaneous realizers, those people who have this capacity to realize immediately, but people who have strong devotion, love, compassion, then they can sometimes just by practicing a little bit, they are able to reach quite a high level of realization quite quickly on the basis of this. And so the view is the antidote to the to the destructive emotion. So therefore, that's why it is said that it is impossible for your mind not to be liberated from the bonds of dualistic grasping. See, if you have this key point of self-arising and self-liberating, if you have this view, then since that acts as an antidote for whatever destructive emotion arises, whatever namtok arises, then whatever grasping arises, then will be liberated from these bonds of dualistic clinging that keep us so in the samsara. And but instead we realize that actually destructive emotion and primordial wisdom are not different, as the great Yogi Milarepa said, that the destructive emotion, all destructive emotions are just wisdom, are not different from primordial wisdom. All destructive emotions are transformed into the five wisdoms, are just expression of the five wisdom. And so, but then if we don't have that, and we just have those kind of namtok ranggyupa that we mentioned, those thoughts in itself, we start solidifying those thoughts, and this is the kind of approach or the way that ordinary people see. And that, as long as we have that, then there won't be any possibility for a liberation. But within the view, within the expanse of the Rigpa, if we stay in the nature of mind, then this is not possible. Those namtok ranggyupa, those kind of solidified thoughts or namtok, then do not exist within the expanse of the nature of mind. They never arise within. As long as we rest within the nature of mind, then those do not arise. So this is the self-liberation or the liberation of extreme and so on. So this is the liberation into the state of the primordial Buddha, Samantabhadra.
Neither Rome do Shinjipa, Namtik Tavi be so. Yamni, neither Rome do the Soso Ranga, Yamina Ranga Tane. Dorna, new mobini for Rome do. Teta go your ace, Namtik Tavi so. Tayang, Ta Chupins Banes. Gom. Zambo yambatate, se chupata, chupara, younger Hovaran younger Jimbre Yichigers. Hovaran young chivate, Hovag doing Tonguyore. Hovag doing Shivata, oh. Dungi Kijina, de Dungi Red. Kong supporting Kong Dungi Yomares. Then it's our animal. Hova did Dungi and Yamato Yomare. Melun Bochi in the young, oh yeah. Matalai, the she talked on the perseg in the Militumi Casino, Shatu Dana. 동의가랑 지마도 싸우네 요 말에 생구대로 마도나 참아 동의가랑 지래 근데 랑지 탐제 동의가랑 지 너나 다다 생구대로 또 봐디 제와한테 강지나 생구대로 마도 탐제 동의가랑 지는 동거리 생구대로 마도 봐 탐제 그오 동의지 나오는 코드는 동의를 이나 동의 요 말에 오 연락이 되는 족바자는 콩으로 와 동해래. 와도 동해 요말더니 상고래. 생내로 도는 탐제 동해래. 샵도 따놨더니 대 고발은 용질 준비를 이치되나 동해가 싸워 강리디 동해가 싸워도 뉴모 봐. 뉴모가 탑top 쳐지는 감성 심진이 담지게 동해가 싸워대. 쭉 봐도 요말이지. 고발들이 쭉 봐도 뭐 쭉 가래리 난지네 샷. 감성 심지나 그다 랑 나오 냐바 난진 지잖아. 감성 심지 동행 뒤도 제일 뉴모 받지 뉴모 빌레서 안된 도로 차도 되나? 저 마렉반이 되고 동해시 그거 난지네. 저 기와는 되와 되나? 강래 심지는 좀 대화도 되어 그호디 찌끌거려. 대화되는 망보리 다 변해. 뭐다나이 되지라서 봤다. 대화되나? 망보리에서 망보 말해. 대화 탐지 자와 거리. 제와래 인fin을 로리샤지. 내가 본 소리 대화 타도 산제서 대화도 대위 이제 찌끌거려. 제와래 샤. 누구이 이제 찌끌거리는 감상 심지인 담질. 대화 너기 이제 너도 이마도 만족돼 세리 있지는. 땅에 준비를 지지는. 드리랑 그 랑도 가리는 딱 만나와 연구요래. 짜방이 원래. 대마시가 빠져. 내 기와리, 내 먹기와리. 기와라라 먹기와 연구를 먹기와라 기와 연구를지. 대외 좀 하고 저 동네 좀 하고 좀 돈을 사람 하고 한 말이. 준비를 지지 그래서. 대기나 딱 난지진 탐지를 했더니 딱 이제 저 생긴 상인지 생긴들 난지지. 난지도 뭐 논도 동네가 남지지. 이제 내 철렀다 낭지. 호와가 라미인데 이래 딱 말했어. 샘들씩 뉴모르스. 설미는 용왕아리는 항 샘들 뉴몽아리. 제 산속선도 대충 참아 상제래스. 난지다는 참아 코와리. 이래 딱 말 내가 드린 처럼 따르래샤. 근데 은혜지는 샘지 은혜지 직장마도 로아를 독들 쫓고 공통 도도 상상하더니 다능 양전이 연구요래. 오다 된리지. 나도 공통은 사람 비원했더니 밖에 등도토도 자와다는 lep송.
So, again, so the text was saying in just the same way, stillness, movement, and thoughts all arise now as meditation, and even if you search for real, solid delusions, you will not find any. And this alone is the measure to determine whether your practice has hit the mark or not. And so, it is again, so the sign that the practice is working is that we have less destructive emotions, and so we can check in this way. And in the notes by Khenpo Munsel, so he's giving indications or different signs. He says that indication can be grasped through conduct. You can learn, for example, from the presence or absence of renunciation for samsara. So that is, so first for one sign is the renunciation for samsara. If we realize the nature of mind, the more we realize the nature of mind, then the more renunciation there is for samsara. Why? Because the more we realize the suffering nature of samsara, we see that it is all suffering, that people just experience, all sentient beings just experience suffering. And because ordinarily the way that we see is that we consider that maybe we experience some suffering, but then if we would have more money, for example, we'd be richer, then we wouldn't have this kind of problem and we wouldn't have any suffering anymore. Or this kind of ideas. So this is the ordinary way. As ordinary people, this is more the way that we see. But when we realize deeply the nature of mind, and the more that we rest in the nature of mind, the more we realize how actually the whole of samsara is just suffering. It is not just that people who appear to be suffering right now are actually suffering and the others are not. We realize that it's all just suffering, that the entire samsara is just about is just suffering. This realization so comes in. So therefore, with that, there's also a very strong sense of renunciation. So renunciation is is a sign. And so again, it is not like ordinarily when we think that someone this person is in trouble, and so he is suffering, but I am fine. I don't have trouble. I'm quite happy actually. This is not like that. With the this is when we look from our ordinary point of view, from our ordinary mind. This is the way that our ordinary mind sees, and in that context, then we just try to accomplish sometimes positive actions or negative actions, but there's not kind of a clarity with that. There's not so much clarity, and so that negative actions can turn into positive actions, or positive actions turn into negative actions, and that is. Well, that aspect of positive actions and negative actions relates more actually to the second point, which is that the second sign that comes, that is a confidence in cause and effect. Because the confidence in the cause and effect is that we realize that actually all the suffering, there's one cause, it comes down to one thing. All the suffering that we experience, that all sentient beings experience, come down to one thing. This is the grasping of the self. And so if we realize that, once we see that, then we have more clarity into and confidence in the law of cause and effect. We realize deeply how, as we rest in the nature of mind, this kind of clarity we come to realize clearly that this is due to the grasping of the self, that all the destructive emotion arise, and as a result we engage into all sorts of actions, negative actions that cause further suffering. And so therefore, with this kind of clarity also, so that we are more able to act for the benefit of others, and to really help others. And because the cause of the so if the cause of all the suffering is the grasping of the self, the cause of the happiness is to think of others, and to have that mind, to have that kind of loving attitude turned towards others. So with that, so we'll be able to actually accumulate the causes for more happiness. But then this is where so it comes that actually sometimes we try to do positive actions, but then actually they turn out to be not so beneficial, and to be rather negative. Or sometimes these negative actions which turn to be positive actions. And so we don't have that kind of clarity. But then as we rest in the nature of mind, then the more we rest, the more experience we gain in our meditation, the more there is a clarity in that law of cause and effect, and a confidence in this, and the more so we are acting in the appropriate manner, accumulating the causes of or doing virtuous actions, and avoiding naturally negative actions. There is and so we develop more so a sense of love and compassion for sentient beings. This also is a consequence of the nature of mind. Within this state of nature of mind, there is also the love, and the compassion is there. And so that develops as a result also of the diminution of the grasping of the self, seeing that all the suffering comes from the grasping of the self. And within that space of the nature of mind, there's no grasping of the self. So therefore, we also have a much more loving and compassionate attitude. So this is the third sign. So and then there is also pure perception towards the way things are. So we start to see genuinely, purely the way things are, seeing how actually the nature of our mind is the Buddha nature, that all sentient beings are actually Buddhas, but it's just that they have temporary obscurations.
Thank you.